So my name is Zachary Adair, and for my research project, I chose the famous children's book author Cynthia Rylant. A little bit about her: she is known for her West Virginia, being around West Virginia and residing in West Virginia. Um, she was born in Virginia. Her parents got a divorce at a very young age, so she went to live with her grandmother and grandfather. And while she was living with them, she realized the Appalachian influences and how being in West Virginia and the mountain ranges really affected her. And with this being from an educational perspective, physically and every part of her life growing up and developing. And that's something that she writes about in some of her children's books. And I think that's what makes her also a really good writer as well for a children's book, is being able to relate so well through her writings. So she's written over 100 children's books in her authors and her experiences writing books. So she started writing books in around the 1970s and 1980s. One of the most famous books was When I Was Young in the Mountains. And this book, it's really one of my favorites. It describes about how growing up in the Appalachian Mountains, really challenged her. She didn't have no library where she was from, so it was harder for her to read and take advantage of some of early educational needs. So I'll just show a few pictures in the book. In the beginning here it says for her grandmother, her grandpa and grandmother. So it talks about a coal mining family from what I called coal country, West Virginia. Growing up, how her grandfather would come home from work and her grandmother would have dinner ready. She talked about growing up in the mountains. Here she said her grandmother would spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. It goes throughout the story. It's a very unique, calming story, and I think I could relate to this story as well myself, and the way my family does things. But it's very interesting. I chose Cynthia Rylant because she was from West Virginia, and she's a really good writer and author for children's books. She has a great imagination and a really creative mind. So this book is just talking about the diversity and really West Virginia Appalachian culture here. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well. So she done a lot of things that a normal kid may not do, and this book is really about her growing up in the Appalachian Mountains and in West Virginia. So I'll go through the book here and show some of the pictures. That one's of her grandmother and her family. Let's see. She's talking about her family and her going to church on Sunday mornings in a small church. Let's see here. And raising some farm animals here and in the mountains. So this is a really enjoyable book for any younger audience. It did receive the Caldecott honor, which I have two books that she received. The other book is entitled The Relatives Came by Cynthia Rylant, and it as well received the Caldecott honor. So both of these books here, The Relatives Came and When I Was Young in the Mountains, they both received the Caldecott honor. 900s. So these are two relatively old books. The other book that I have from her is a really famous book, another one by her. I really enjoyed this one as well. Henry and Mudge and the Best Day of All. In this book, it talks about a young child, a young boy, Henry, who has a dog. They're a really, Henry and the dog, plus his family, are, they acquire some really good attributes and qualities, characteristics. The author really made this book, all about family and togetherness. Even in before kids go into school and after, elementary school, you can read this book. It would be a great read aloud for kids, teaching different qualities, and really just an interesting story just for kids to interact with and really want to read. So I think this book would really grab their attention. I'll show some pictures in the book. So it's talking about his birthday party and how his dog made it a good party as well. Some kids running around, playing with a swinging at a piñata, and having a good time there. Okay, so also I'll talk more about these two books. Is that when I was young in the mountains and their relatives came, both of these books are talking, I think, about her life, especially this one here. It hits the spot with culture and diversity perspectives from the Appalachian and the two Virginia states, and how normally, kids wouldn't, some kids may not have grown up in the mountains. So this is something that I would use in the classroom. It can be very interesting to the children. And it talks about her life here. And I think that Cynthia Rylant was such a good author about relating to kids and really touching them and making them want to, continue reading their book. And this is why she is such a famous author. She is, from what I read about her and what I understand, she is so kind and humble, and she has really good qualities in her life. And the way she writes books as well, you can really tell that she puts her heart into writing books. One interview that I found, she talks about how she really thinks about every word that she writes before she even, considers putting it on paper. Not just by the sentence, she focuses on every word, in the sentence. Specifically, trying to look into the eyes of each child as she's writing the book. And I think this is, Cynthia Rylant is such a great author. And this is why I chose her, and she has changed. I think she has changed the way children's books has been written, and brought it into a whole nother perspective for children's literature.